Well, hey, folks, welcome to our studio. As you know, I'm Ken. That is Dr. John Deloney, a Ramsey personality. He's my friend, and he has a PhD in counseling. And we have got to talk about how to handle the uncertainty of what's going on with this coronavirus. John, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ken.
I want to talk about the fear surrounding the unknown in this whole global pandemic. What are we experiencing and why are we experiencing it? And then what do we do with it?
So I think a good place to start is to back up a little bit and say the difference between anxiety and fear. We hear a lot about, I've got anxiety disorder. You Google it. We've all had anxiety for a while, right? Anxiety is really this kind of amorphous concern about something that might happen sometime, right? Think of anxiety as just a fire alarm, right? It just goes off. Anxiety disorder is when that alarm is broken and it's just going off all the time. Fear is when there's actually the building's on fire, right? And so what we're all feeling right now is not anxiety. It's not anxiety. It's actual fear. Mm-hmm. And it could be fear because we think this whole thing's overblown and people are losing their minds. We can think it's fear because it's the end of the economy as we know it, or we can have fear that my mom and dad are going to pass away and we're going to have millions dead across the world, right? But the fear that we're all feeling is real. And that's where we're at. Yeah. And our media companies, our news outlets who are paid per click, right? They have an obligation to keep us glued to it. Yeah. So the more sensationalist on either side of this conversation they can make it, and the more fear we experience, the more they're doing their job.
Yeah.
Right?
All right. So where does that leave us? So we've got it coming at it both sides. How do we process the fear?
Right.
Then what do we do to keep acting? Because we've got shutdown, isolation, we've got all these things. How do we process and then act?
That's a great question, because when we're scared, we usually fall into one of two camps. We curl up in a ball, or we just want to start trying to solve it, right? Start doing stuff. And it's hard when the stuff we've been told to do is just go home and shut your door, right?
Yeah.
And now we found ourselves maybe without a job or maybe with reduced hours. We got a house full of kids. We have a husband or wife who's working from home now, and now we're all just stuck in there, right? And so the question, I think it's a great question, is what do we do now?
Yeah.
For me, first and foremost, I think it's turn the noise off.
Yeah.
Turn the noise off. I've limited myself to two updates a day, and either I'm trying to do it mid-morning and late in the evening.
Interesting.
But just turn the noise off, because it's just coming from everywhere.
Right.
And then number two is, how can I re-engage with the people around me?
Right.
And how can I follow the guidelines that were set? I want to be a good, responsible citizen. I also don't want to run around panicking, because panicking is stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's the key. All right. So let's talk about how we interact with others.
Okay.
All right. Because now we're in this really weird situation.
Right.
We're seeing people fighting with each other at supermarkets. We're seeing shaming on social media websites. Right. Okay, I talked about this on my show yesterday. People are shaming people in my neighborhood because they're seeing them have people over at their house. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, this thing is about to get real. And you've got the whole spectrum. You got people who are going, hey, I've got some people that are at risk.
Right.
Okay, we know this. And you being out and about is putting my family at risk. That feels very, very personal, and I certainly get that, right? Then you got, the beaches of young people going, oh, wait a second. We're going to go to spring break. We're at the beach, man. I know it's crazy, but this is happening. How do we not, as a society, fray?
Right. This is important to note. If we're being told to isolate, then we need to consider what we're being told to do, right? If we're being told to isolate, then we need to isolate. But we also have to remember that loneliness will kill us, right? And sitting in our house, spinning and just clicking and watching every outlet we can get our hands on, usually just confirming what we already think about this thing anyway, is going to drive us crazy. Panicking solves nothing other than to make everybody else fall down too. Okay? So a couple of things. Number one, go be a human. And I've taken my dog on walks. My family's out of town. They had a trip already planned. When they come back, we're going to walk around the neighborhood, and I'm overly waving and saying, hello, how are you? It's good to see you, right? Yeah. When I see people on their front porch, we're waving. If you have a group, a family that's down the street from you, and they've got kids, and y'all don't have anyone in your circle, and you feel safe, invite them over to your house. That's a decision that y'all are going to have to make amongst yourselves, right? Yeah. But fighting somebody at a grocery store is nonsense.
Right.
We're not there yet. We're not there. We're not going to be there. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Right.
You're
Exactly.
right. Stop.
Yeah.
Right.
I want you to talk to parents who many of whom are kind of in their homes, schools canceled for the foreseeable future. Certainly in our area, that's happening around the country. At some point, kids start to get, let's just call it what it is, they start to get cabin fever. They're
Absolutely.
going to get out,
Right.
but you can't really go do a whole lot.
Right.
A lot of things aren't available. They've got online schooling. They just get all pent up, and you got the family dynamic now is getting squeezed.
There you go.
How do we win as parents and spouses in this weird isolation?
So we haven't dealt with this in a long time as a country, as a world, right? So I think the first thing we got to do is exhale. And the same way we would go after, I've heard you do a great job telling your listeners how to make a plan to go after their dream job, how to set goals. I think we got to bring that down to our home. I got to sit down with my partner and say, my wife, with your husband, and say, like, what is our goal for today? We don't know what this is going to look like next week, 2 weeks from now. What is the goal for today? Like, how are we going to stay connected? Yeah. What is that going to look like for us? And then 2, here's our plan for today, right? And it's being, if you've got older kids, you got high school kids, you got middle school kids, you've got elementary age kids, it's sitting down and saying, here is the map for today. Yeah. And if you've got babies, God bless you, right? That's going to be tough. Yeah. Especially if you've been told to go home and work from home and keep your productivity up, make sure it's going to be hard. I think it's starting with a plan, making sure you've got goals, and then every hour go outside. Yeah. Go outside. Yeah. Go for a walk. Yeah. Take your overweight dog out around the neighborhood, right? Take your kids out and spend some time together. And this is we're going to have to learn how to do this because we don't do this well as a country, as a culture. We don't. Yeah, that's so true. Right? He is Dr. John Deloney. Thank you, John, for being with us. This is good stuff. Tell folks where they can connect with you during this season. And I'm at John Deloney, DELONY, on Instagram. There it is. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, dude. Everybody, it's going to be okay. I second that motion. It'll be all right. Stay with us here on the Ken Coleman Show. We're going to keep bringing you practical hope, and we're going to encourage you through this season. We will get through this. It will pass. Better days are ahead.